Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. Rachel Fleming's heart beat slightly faster as she picked up her vibrating cell phone. The screen shows a text message from her husband Oliver, who has been traveling for several days. She unlocked her phone and quickly skimmed the message. "The work is done over here. I'm on my way back. I've made a reservation at the restaurant for 7 p.m. See you there. Happy anniversary." The message contained neither tender words nor any emoticons expressing feelings. This doesn't surprise Rachel, because for some reason Oliver has become extra distant lately. She replied briefly, "Okay, let's meet and talk. Happy anniversary. I love you." After sending the message, she placed her phone on the nightstand, hoping to see any response, even the simplest of emojis. But the screen never lit up again. Rachel glanced at the clock and realized she only had just enough time left to clean herself up before meeting her husband. She sighed and got up from the bed and was on her way to the bathroom to take a shower. "Who sent the message?" Marcus Davis asked, the man who had been Rachel's companion for the past few hours. "It's Oliver," Rachel replied. "He told me he was coming back and had made reservations for us for tonight. Today is our 5th wedding anniversary." "5th anniversary?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I thought you said he went east on business?" "Yes, he did go," Rachel said with a nod. "And it looks like he finished the job earlier than expected. I'll have to call my mom and see if she can watch little Nathan a little longer." "Come back to bed then." Marcus gave an ambiguous smile. "Maybe we can get Oliver a special gift." Rachel scoffed at the offer. "I'd love to continue, Marcus, but I really need to sort myself out and there's not a lot of time," she said. "Luckily, I have some clean clothes here to change into. I can't go to my husband in clothes that are wrinkled and soiled here." "Do you think he knows about us?" Rachel shook her head. "I don't think so. Lately, he's been busy with work, which has taken up almost all of his attention. He rarely spoke to me and barely even bothered with the little one. It's like he lives in a completely different world." "How long are you going to keep it from him?" Marcus asked. Rachel shrugged. "I honestly don't know. He's a good breadwinner, and I know he'd be a good father if he wanted to be." "Do you think he knows little Nathan isn't his child?" "If he knew, he would have said something. I can't imagine him keeping quiet about something like this." "I'm here if you need any help," Marcus said. Rachel smiled at him, her eyes falling on his hand resting on her right leg. "Just keep it warm for me," she said, offering a meaningful smile. "Sure, baby," he responded, with the same smile on his face. Rachel walks to the closet and pulls out a clean dress. She tried to remember if Oliver had ever seen the dress. It was a blue dress, 7 centimeters above the knee, with a deep V neckline. She was almost certain Oliver had seen the dress before, and if not, she'd say it was a recent purchase. After calling her mother, Rachel walked into the bathroom and started a hot shower. 18 months ago, when she had begun her affair with Marcus, she had promised herself that she would never disrespect her husband, that she would give him her complete attention, and that she would never let him touch her with Marcus marks. At first, Marcus understood this, but since the birth of little Nathan 3 months ago, he has begun to put pressure on it. Rachel tells him that's low, and that she would never disrespect her husband in that way. Having sex with Marcus was bad enough. Having Marcus' baby was worse, but that was something she would never do. After her shower, Rachel carefully brushed her long hair until it was perfect, got dressed, and put on her makeup. After looking in the mirror to make sure she looked and smelled good enough to pass Oliver's inspection, she kissed Marcus goodnight. "See you at the office tomorrow?" Marcus asked, eyeing her up and down. "Of course, my dear," she replied, "but there are responsibilities tonight." She picked up her handbag and left the room as if nothing had happened. Oliver Fleming sat in his Cadillac Escalade and took a deep drag on his cigarette. He's just received a message from a private investigator telling him that Rachel has left the luxury apartment belonging to Marcus Davis, the man who's been her lover for nearly 18 months. He glanced at the photo the detective had sent. Rachel was wearing a blue dress. It wasn't the one she'd worn to Marcus's apartment, and of course, Oliver had never seen it before. Rachel's right. Oliver did go east, but he came back a day early. He was told in no uncertain terms that there was a serious breach in his security system that needed to be addressed immediately. They told him that if he didn't take care of the problem, they would take care of it themselves. They, in this case, refers to a federal agency that does not even allow its existence to be known to the public. Oliver thought back to the tense moments sitting in the office of the one-eyed man known only as Alpha One. A man only a few were allowed to know the man's real name, and Oliver wasn't on that list. "You've got a serious problem, Fleming." The man's head movement as he spoke reminded Oliver of the actor who had once played Moses. "And when you've got a problem, we all have a problem. Settle this quietly, or I'll settle it myself." "Yes, sir," Oliver replied. He was smart enough to know that was the only acceptable answer to Alpha One. He also knew that Alpha One had no qualms about making people disappear. He'd heard about how Alpha One had once destroyed an entire beach house and everyone in it, and the idea made Oliver shudder. Rachel thought Oliver was just a famous traveling salesman who traveled around the country selling various companies on their security system upgrades. But Oliver is much more than that. Sure, he does sell security equipment and oversees its installation, but his job is far more complex than that of a salesman. The equipment he sells and installs is equipped with special circuits that give Alpha One's monitors insight into virtually all of the behavior of these companies, what kind of customers they accept, how they handle their profits, all the details. Oliver knew that the problem Alpha One was referring to was his wife of 5 years, Rachel. For the past 18 months, she has been having a sordid affair with Marcus Davis, one of the senior partners at her law firm. Oliver doesn't know all the details at first because he travels a lot for work, but he notices early on that something isn't right between them. By the time he learns the details of the affair, Rachel has announced that she's pregnant. The attorney Oliver consulted told him that no judge in the state would consider a divorce case while Rachel was pregnant. If the child ultimately proves to be his, he must pay support regardless of the prenuptial agreement they signed. The only thing he doesn't have to worry about is the house, because that's what he owned before he got married. Throughout the pregnancy, Oliver gritted his teeth and kept quiet, barely able to maintain his composure when she named the baby Nathan after the baby's biological father. Shortly after the baby was born, Oliver took a DNA test, and he wasn't surprised by the results. The boy was not his child. Glancing at his watch, Oliver realizes that Rachel will be arriving soon. He saw a man in a khaki jacket and a woman with a briefcase standing in front of the restaurant, and he knew they were there for him. He crossed the street and parked his car, grabbed his ubiquitous briefcase, and headed for the entrance. He nodded slightly to the two men at the door, then spoke quietly to the lady at the door and was soon placed in a corner booth. The man in the khaki jacket and the woman were sitting in another bay where they could hear voices. Oliver thanked the waitress for the water and began to peruse the menu. He noticed Rachel arriving at the table and put down his menu. He stood up as she took the seat across from him. "Good evening, Rachel," he said in a neutral tone. "You look beautiful tonight." "Thanks, Oliver," she replied, flashing a smile. "I don't remember seeing this dress before. Is it new?" Yeah, I just bought it. Do you like it?" "Yes, it suits your eyes," he said, giving a faint smile. After they finished ordering, music came from the other side of the restaurant. More than just a restaurant, this venue features a dance floor and cocktail bar. "It sounded like our song was playing," Rachel said. Oliver knew it was her cue to want to dance. What the hell, he thought. It was their wedding anniversary, even if it was the last one. "Want to dance?" he asked as he stood up. "Yeah," Rachel said, holding out her hand. Oliver took her hand and led her to the dance floor. They danced in each other's arms, but Rachel couldn't help but notice that Oliver kept her at arm's length, as if he could barely stand to touch her. The music eventually ends and Oliver escorts her back to the card table. By this time their food had come up and they began to dine. "Oliver, is something wrong?" Rachel asked. "You seem detached." "It's our wedding anniversary." "Yes, indeed," Oliver replied. "The problem is that your dress smells like it's been hanging in Marcus Davis's closet for a long time, and no matter how hard you try, you haven't been able to completely wash out his odor." "What?" Rachel was offended by the way Oliver spoke. "Marcus Davis? Are you serious?" She tried to change the subject, but obviously failed. "Yes, you know Marcus Davis, a senior partner at the law firm where you work," Oliver said as if nothing had happened. "Of course I know him," Rachel replied sarcastically. "I certainly hope you know him," Oliver said. "After all, you've spent enough time in his bed, and he's little Nathan's real father." "What are you talking about? This is ridiculous." I'm not going to sit here and listen to you talk to me like that. She protested. Oh, you'll be listening, Oliver said, opening his briefcase. You'll be sitting here absorbing every bit of information I decide to share, especially after what you've been doing for the last 16 months. I don't understand what you're talking about. Surely you understand. Let's start with this, he said, throwing a piece of paper in front of her. What is it? Here are the results of your child's DNA test. According to this, Nathan is not my son. On the next page is another DNA test that proves the donor was your lover Marcus Davis, the man you named your child Nathan after. How could you possibly get Marcus DNA? She asked, confused. It's easy. You bring him home at least 3 times a week. But that's not all. He pulled out a thick folder and tossed it on the table. What is it? This is a copy of every email, text message, and electronic communication between you and Marcus over the past 16 months. I'm sorry to tell you that nothing is really private on the internet. Okay, I admit it, she said. Marcus and I did have sex once. But that's all. It was just sex. It meant nothing. Absolutely nothing. Yeah? Please turn to page 75. Find the paragraph I've labeled and tell me what you see. She flipped to the page Oliver had mentioned and turned pale when she saw those words. I'm waiting, Oliver said. I'm reading, she whispered. I want to hear you read out loud what you wrote to him, Oliver insisted. Please, she pleaded. Don't make me do this. Either you read it or I'll read it, and if I do, I don't care who hears it. Tears streamed down Rachel's face as she looked at the page again and began to read out the words Oliver had labeled. I love everything you've done for me, Marcus. I have never felt so fulfilled in the last 16 months. I can't wait for you to give me another baby. I like your size better than Oliver's, and I can't wait for you to fill me up again. She finished reading, her voice trembling. In all the time we've been married, I don't remember you ever talking to me like that, Oliver said. Is that all the evidence you have? She asked nervously. No, I still have photos, audio and video. Hours of video. You must hate me so much, Rachel said softly. Yes, I do hate you. At those words, she looked up, shocked. It felt like a slap in the face. There was a time when I would have taken a bullet for you. How long have you known? I had my suspicions before you told me you were pregnant. I did some research and gathered enough evidence to satisfy the prenuptial agreement requirement. But when I went to a lawyer for advice, you told me you were pregnant. The attorney made it clear that no judge will consider a divorce until you go into labor because of the alimony issues involved. But now that Nathan has been born, I have enough evidence to proceed. So I filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery. Oliver gestures to 2 men at a nearby table, who stand up and walk toward their table. This gentleman has something for you, Ms. Rachel Fleming? The man asked. Yes, Rachel said softly. The man set down a heavy envelope in front of her. You've been served, Oliver said. Delivery? Rachel asked, tears running down her cheeks. Yes, Oliver said, handing her a pen. Here are the divorce papers. Take a look. They are exactly what we agreed on in the prenuptial agreement. Sign it now. I have a check ready for $2,394, which is the exact amount you deposited when you got married. Don't ask for more. I already know your secret stash. You can keep it. All your things have been sent to your mother's house, and yes, she knows about it, and she's very disappointed in you. But for the sake of the child, she agreed to let you stay temporarily, not for your sake. But I don't want a divorce, Rachel said. I love you. Come on, Rachel. Don't insult my intelligence. He pulls out his cell phone and plays the conversation she had with Marcus earlier today. Her eyes widened when she heard her voice coming out of Oliver's cell phone. You. How did you get this? She asked. Well, if I told you, I'd really have to shoot you on sight. As much as I hate you right now, I really don't think depriving little Nathan of his mother was the right thing to do, Oliver said, a warmthless smile on his face. To me, you're nothing more than a meal ticket and caretaker, while the father of your child gets all the benefits. Just so you know, your ticket has been punched and there will be no more free rides, at least for me. What about Marcus? She asked. Concerned about him, are you? Fortunately, we live in a state that allows emotional alienation lawsuits. He is now being served with process. This may or may not come to fruition, But it's the principle that counts, isn't it? In any case, his troubles were just beginning. You see, today I spoke with Hamilton Parker, your managing partner. I showed him my evidence and expressed my displeasure that one of his senior partners was having a relationship with a subordinate, especially since that subordinate also happened to be my wife. Mr. Parker is very disturbed and quite concerned that Marcus's actions may bring unwanted attention, not to mention potential financial burdens, to his law firm. He agreed that it was best to let Marcus leave the company and assured me that he would discuss the matter with the board tonight. He also agrees that it's not right to punish you, especially since you're now a mother with a newborn. After all, Marcus is somehow your boss, and he doesn't want to expose the firm to potential sexual harassment lawsuits. Considering your work history there, he agreed to keep you on for the time being. But I assure you, Marcus' troubles are just beginning, Oliver said. Do you really know your lover? I mean, do you really know him? What do you mean by that? Rachel asked. I'm talking about his clients, the people he does business with. I mean who he really represents and what he's doing when he's not pinning you to the mattress, you know all that. I don't know. He doesn't talk to me about that sort of thing. It's probably for the best. Let's put it this way. Your Marcus has some very interesting clientele. The type that would attract the attention of certain federal agencies that can make a person disappear without their knowledge. You know what I mean? You're scaring me, Oliver. You should indeed be afraid, he said. Are you afraid enough to stay away from Marcus? Because he's going down, and if you're still with him when it happens, you're going down with him. Who the hell are you, Oliver? She asked. Really? He smiled and nodded toward the papers in front of her. Sign it, Rachel, and end this farce now. I've probably told you too much already. By the way, your credit card has been canceled. Your room key doesn't work, and I changed the locks today while you were with Marcus. I also took care of the bank account, so you no longer have access to it. Considering you've been depositing half of your earnings into your secret account, this shouldn't be a problem. You knew all along, didn't you? She asked. Oliver shrugged. A defeated Rachel looks at the divorce papers and realizes they are indeed what Oliver said they were. She signed and handed the pen back to Oliver. He smiled and picked up his pen to review the paperwork. The process server witnessed the signature, and the accompanying lady notarized the signed document. Oliver handed the man the file. I'll make sure these get to your lawyer, Mr. Fleming, the man said. Thanks, Oliver said. After they leave, Oliver turns to Rachel. I think you should give me back my ring, he tells her. Do I have to? I love these rings, she purred. Apparently not enough love to keep you out of Marcus Davis's bed, a tearful Rachel said as she removed the ring and placed it on the table. He pocketed the ring before speaking again. I think we're done here. Is that all you have to say? What else is there to say? Oliver asked. Why? Why do you want to do this on our anniversary? She asked, tears running down her cheeks. Do you realize how humiliating this is for me? Do you know how humiliating it was when I realized you'd been lying to me? How humiliating was it when I realized Nathan wasn't my son? How humiliating was it when I found out you slept with Marcus on our anniversary? Don't talk to me about humiliation, Oliver said. We're done, totally done. Goodbye, Rachel. I never want to see your face again. With those words, he returned to his meal and stopped looking at Rachel, who was wiping the tears from her face. The waitress came over and asked if everything was okay. Yes, the meal was delicious as always, Oliver said casually. I'll pay the bill. The lady needs to pack. Yes, sir, the waitress replied, leaving to get the takeout box. She quickly returned and put Rachel's leftovers in a styrofoam box. Oliver hands the waitress a credit card and pays for the meal while Rachel gathers her things. When the waitress finishes the check, Rachel looks at Oliver. That's it. That's it, Oliver said, waving her away. She couldn't believe he dismissed her so casually. I'm sorry, Oliver. He looked up from his meal and said, Well, that's the only thing we can agree on, he said. Now please go. Say hello to your mother for me. Oh, and by the way, happy anniversary, he added, a faint smile on his face. Rachel couldn't believe that her husband had just casually thrown her away like garbage and ran out of the restaurant in tears. Oliver noticed some of the patrons looking at him with disdain, but he just smiled and shrugged as he continued to eat. On the outside, he looks calm and collected, but on the inside he is emotionally broken. 5 years of marriage down the drain. At least the worst part is over. Oliver managed to get through the next few days without incident. It hadn't been easy. He had loved Rachel with all his sincerity, and having to treat her like this was killing him, but he thought it was better than taking out his anger at her the way he wanted to. Then one day he heard a knock at the front door. He was upstairs in the master bedroom, looking out the window, when he saw Marcus Sport's car parked in the driveway. He had a feeling this would happen, so at Alpha One's insistence, he made some upgrades to his home security system. He went downstairs and opened the door, and sure enough, it was Marcus Davis, and he was furious. Oliver took a step back when Marcus burst into the house. "You asshole," Marcus growled, his face reddening. "You cost me my job, and now Rachel won't even talk to me. I'm going to kill you, you piece of shit." He closes in on Oliver until he suddenly notices 15 little reds appear on his shirt. "Warning, intruder," came an electronic voice from the embedded speakers on the wall. "Do not move." "What the fuck is this?" the uninvited guest screamed. He raised his hand as if trying to brush away the red dots. Suddenly, there was a sharp sound like the firing of a pneumatic rifle. When Marcus looks down, he finds 15 darts stuck in him. He tried to reach out, but never managed to complete the maneuver. His eyes rolled white and his body fell to the ground. "I don't think you're going to kill anyone today, Davis," Oliver said calmly. Picking up the phone, he pressed an icon and heard a male voice. "Operator 1211, Oliver said, aisle 15 needs to be cleared." "Understood. Aisle 15 needs to be cleared," the man replied. Oliver presses another icon, and the system that just fired a bunch of tranquilizer darts at Marcus turns and retracts back into the ceiling. When the panel was closed, there was no indication that anything had ever been there. Oliver smiled with satisfaction that the new security system was working well as promised. A few minutes later, an unmarked white van pulled into the driveway. Several men in protective suits enter the house and drag Marcus' limp body away. One of them took Marcus' keys and drove off with his sports car. Within minutes, the van and Marcus' sports car were gone. Oliver closed the door and went back to his business. A few days later, after Oliver bought a caramel mocha at the local coffee shop, a large man in a dark suit and sunglasses stopped him on the street. "Alpha One wants to talk to you, Mr. Fleming," the man growled lowly. "Right now." "Okay," Oliver said, a little perturbed by the man's attitude. After the man opened the back door, he followed him over to a long black sedan parked on the curb and got in. "Fleming, it's good to see you're still free," Alpha One said as the car door closed. Yes, sir, I've been busy," Oliver replied. Alpha One smiled and put a friendly hand on Oliver's shoulder. "Please, Oliver, when it's just the two of us, you can call me Regis," the one-eyed man said. "I wanted to update you on Mr. Marcus, who sings like a canary." "Thanks, Alpha." Regis. So he's told us everything we need to know?" Oliver asked. "Oh yes, he went all out to confess," said Regis. "But now he does sing like a canary. Looks like the combination of your new security system's tranquilizer dart and the serum we used to extract the information we needed turned his brain into applesauce. Right now he's rattling around in a metal cage, twittering like a bird." "Oh," Oliver said. Regis takes an envelope out of his jacket pocket and hands it to Oliver. "We managed to get him to settle with you out of court before he became too unconscious to sign," Regis said. "And he was so grateful to be alive that he agreed to a much larger amount than you initially wanted." "That's great to hear," Oliver said. "By the way, I want you to know how impressed I am with your new system," Regis said. "Now that we got what we needed from Carter, I'm glad you didn't use the 50 caliber repeating machine gun I suggested." "Me too," Oliver said. "I just cleaned the carpet." Regis laughed softly at this. "Have you heard anything from Rachel?" Oliver asked. "Yes, she went back to work, but Mr. Parker kept her under strict supervision." Regis asked, "Did you ever tell her who you really work for?" "No, Regis, I never have," Oliver replied. Regis nodded. He already knew this from the surveillance equipment, but wanted to hear it from Oliver himself. "Very well," Regis said. "Well, when your divorce is finalized, I'd like you to come to headquarters. I'd like to introduce you to your new partner." "Partner?" Oliver asked. "I never needed a partner before." "There's always a first time for everything, isn't there, Oliver?" Yes, sir. I think so," Oliver said. Good, Regis said. Then I look forward to seeing you. Me too, Regis, Oliver said. The car door opened, signaling the end of the meeting. Oliver stepped out of the limo and watched the large man squeeze into the driver's seat. As the long car merges into traffic, Oliver wonders what Regis has in store for him. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.